Welcome back to the show. We're just going to pick up right where we left off. Go.
So when it comes to Canada, you also see the big players in this game operating out of Canada. So a notable figure is Sochi Lop, who is dubbed Asia's El Chapo, makes ridiculous amounts of money. The organizations that he oversees, we're talking about $8 billion annually. And so they come here and they operate out of here because of our lax laws. So he moved here in 1988. He ended up getting arrested in Hong Kong and extradited to America for charges. After he was released from that, he moved right back to Canada and ended up living in Markham for about a decade before he was then later arrested in Amsterdam in 2021. So there's a lot of these guys like him who are at the top of the game that can operate in Canada seemingly without any law enforcement getting on them.
With impunity, it seems like.
And then everywhere else they go in the world, they get arrested. So.
Right. So we're not just harboring them. We're facilitating it through the lax system we have, both in economics and at the border and with our lax crime laws. Okay. So a question I want to ask you about this 43 pounds of fentanyl. We know that this is incorrect, but why is that number so misleading?
Well, just because even right at it, right? 43 pounds of fentanyl at the border. That's a very small location when you're factoring in.
Yeah, at a very big border that's very open.
Exactly. And so even a lot of the numbers that you rattled off in the opening monologue of this episode, you can see that all of those happen deep into the States or in Canada as well. That's not ever going to be put on the spreadsheet of what gets seized at the border.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely just a misleading number off the hop.
Got it. So I want to jump into how these networks all work together. So how do transnational gangs, whether the triads or the cartels or others, which we know are involved, how do they work together to actually move fentanyl through Canada and into the United States?
Well, if you think about crime as just any other business, you know, if you have a business in a certain sector, maybe you need a supplier for a certain product.
Yeah.
And so if you think about the Sinaloa cartel and other Mexican gangs, we actually have 4,000 different organized crime groups in Canada right now.
4,000?
4,000. The RCMP has stated this in a commission themselves.
Wow.
So those different groups, they need the products to make these drugs that they then sell. And so a lot of the precursor chemicals are actually getting shipped in through massive companies and such that are based out of China. They bring the raw materials into China, and then those groups like, say, the Sinaloa cartel or even these smaller groups then buy those chemicals, make wholesale, and then make the product here.
And then once the product's made, how is it getting everywhere?
Well, it seems like our trucking industry is definitely playing a part in that. As you pointed out, the regulations within our trucking industry have been shattered over the last few years, and the amount of schools popping up. So even, for instance, there are teachers at these schools that don't have the proper requirements that for them to give people the driver's license that they need for trucks.
Right.
But they're doing it anyways. So it's essentially a pay-to-play. If you think about that as a international crime group, well, if I need a distribution process, you can just pay for your foot soldiers to go there. We'll pay for the credit for this school. You don't even need the time, essentially, because it's a completely fabricated piece of paper. But then, yeah, you can just pay to play your whole way through the trucking process.
Okay, so we know China's making the precursors. We know that Mexico is involved in finishing the process, let's say, and shipping. And now we've got, it seems, Ontario, their trucking laws. They're making it very easy for the distribution process. Why would they be doing this?
Well, I mean, it depends which way you want to go on that question. Some of it, I think there isn't really like an overall they. For instance, different people have different incentives. So some people within our political class just have an incentive to pretend like the problem doesn't exist because it would look bad on them. They would have a hard time getting votes in the next election if it came out that they allowed this problem to fester. However, I do believe that there are people in our political class that are directly tied into this and profit off of it as well. So, for instance, there's a famous scandal of the Liberal MP Randy Bosno. He was tied to a company called Global Health Imports, which was owned by Steven Anderson, and they shared an address, that business shared an address with Francesca LeBlond, who has been detained twice for international drug smuggling. Most recently, she was caught with 420 pounds of cocaine in a private jet.
Right.
And so you have these intertwined people. And so I think it benefits them all at the same time.
So it's just it's either they're trying to do the right thing, virtue signaling, or there's something in it for them.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone's different.
We'll be right back.